Welcome to the Work-Life Balance Podcast. I am Kara.
And I am Maggie.
Together, we're a power real estate team with the Bajetti Partners in Nashville.
We believe that the hustle culture of today's driven entrepreneur who lives and works in Middle Tennessee requires balance. Insurance should never be a hurdle when purchasing a home. It's one of the most important purchases of your life and should be handled with proper care.
Whether that be your first home purchase or the next addition to your portfolio, reach out to the Sally Insurance Agency with Shelter Insurance for a free consultation so you are confident that you are protected when it matters the most.
Call Shay and Sally at 865-671-6451.
Work-Life Balance. Today we've got Angela Proffitt with us, the GSD girl. We're going to get into all of that here in a little bit, but thank you for being here today, babe. Appreciate it so much.
I'm so excited to be here.
Joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So exciting to meet you and find your story out, and we're looking forward to hearing all about it.
So before we start, just throw it out there. What does GSD mean?
GSD stands for Get Shit Done. And as the brand has evolved over the years, some people in my audience point out the best things about it. Could mean German Shepherd dog. And I love dogs, but it's not that.
Yeah, I know.
But even to take it a step further, and I will say part of the pandemic, I'm some of my team might say I'm a hard ass, but I like to have fun doing it. And that's where I think there's a gap between remembering fun and service and the people we're serving and showing up for and actually being productive. And how do you marry the two? And prior to the pandemic, I wasn't so focused on the before. I was focused on let's get shit done so we can have fun and we can be present in our everyday life.
So you figured out how you can actually you can mingle both of them together because you can have fun and get shit done.
Absolutely.
We do it every day. So
every day.
We're doing it right now.
Yes.
We're getting shit done and having fun.
Yes, that's exactly what our podcast is about. And that's why we created this, just to show that you can have both. It's very attainable and achievable for sure.
So great. So it sounds like we have a little bit in common, like going way back. So when I was reading about you and your bio and all your cool stuff, so psychology is your degree. So similar to Maggie and I, and we use it clearly every day, and I'm sure you do. So is it totally taken you're using your major. It's not like you just got it and then it's like useless.
Yeah.
It's a usable major.
Well, in any, there's so many people that are like, oh, well, my degree's in this, but I do this.
Yeah.
And anything in business, if you're going to run a business or psychology, you can't go wrong. Right. What I will say is so different is, studying it in school and learning about it and watching documentaries and movies and what you think you're about to sign up and do. And then when you actually go and work in a facility, depending on what type of facility it is, it's very different. And that's where, when I moved to do my rotations to Pensacola, Florida, y'all, I thought it was going to be so cool, live on the beach. It's not quite what happened. But I did live on the beach in my uncle's condo, and it was cool. But there was sand in my bed every night. I had allergies.
Too good to be true.
It was, I walked to work. It was right around the corner to the hospital. But I really got to experience at a very young age very sick people who they have no control, and drugs medicate them. I got to work with people who, it was the partial unit, so it was people that had suffered like an immediate tragedy that wasn't planned for, and they could have suicidal thoughts. So for example, my very first patient, he was a huge canoeer and kayaker, and he had a horrible accident, and so he lost his legs. And, was paralyzed from the waist down. So it was a very traumatic experience with all the surgeries and stuff, and, had a suicide attempt. He owned a business, very successful. So my brain was opened up, and then I was specialized group therapy. And I only worked there a year, y'all. I couldn't take it. I cried every day.
So sad.
I would call my mom and dad. It was it takes a really special person to do that. And that wasn't me. And I'm not a quitter, but some things happen with a patient, and I'm like, I just can't. Yeah. So I moved back to Nashville, but I use those experiences every single day. And that's when we started my first wedding planning business, that's what really set us apart, is understanding the psychology of how people see me, and then how I need to customize the message. They need to hear it based on their personality and their triggers.
Especially weddings. Bridezillas, Groomzillas.
I don't tolerate
all the Zillas.
It's not about what you say. It's not about what you say or how you say it. It's about how the other person perceives it. And if you can figure out how they perceive it, you can really do anything.
And especially wedding planning, because it's so stressful for all parties involved, that you kind of have to be like the mediator and the therapist and, you know, the coach and everything. So
what makes it stressful though is the lack of communication in the way people need to hear it, and the lack of education, because some of us, me included, for many years, moving so fast, we just say yes to everything because we want to help everybody, and we don't serve ourselves.
Sure.
And so that's where you got to slow down, and you know, you blink your eyes and I'm like, oh my God, I'm 10 years in. We have this massive monster is what it was, because I didn't want to do it anymore because I was so burnt out.
Right.
You know, so that's where it's like you almost have to stop, and it's like what you preach and what you believe and what you've studied to stop, notice that there's a little bit of a problem, like a workaholic problem, and when you start caring more than your client, sometimes it's like,
wow,
you know, take a step back. So
for sure.
I use it. Do y'all use it
every
with
day?
Your clients
with
every day?
Clients, I mean, real estate is such a.
It's just so emotional.
It's an emotional roller coaster, you know, especially
so
like with being an agent. And like yesterday, we're dealing with the buyer that's super emotional and a little aggressive. And then you've got the agent / owner that's very emotional and aggressive. And you're trying to be the therapist between two parties. So we're trying, the mediator. And so every day, like there hasn't been a day that I haven't used it.
Yeah.
And not only in work, but in life, like for relationships with friends, your husband, your kids, your friends, like
everything.
It's everything.
Yeah.
I think it's like a win-win to have that degree.
I think so, for sure.
I mean,
so let's get into that a little bit. Your wedding planning business. So you grew an 8-figure business. How and why?
There's so much that goes into it, but the highlights of it is, first, the wedding industry is, you've got this Cinderella fairy because of Disney, thanks to Disney, which is great. When you ask my sister, who's in her 40s, why do you go to Disney so many times a year? She's like, it makes me feel like a kid. It makes me feel alive. I get that through my work. I don't know if you guys feel that way. It's like, you know, you get to dress up, play house, sell houses, and people are like, oh my God, it just seems so fun. And then you add travel to it, and like, they're like, can I come in? I'm like, you see what you see on the outside, even when social media didn't exist, because none of the social stuff existed when I started the business. It's just so different of like reality. Even coming back when there was no social media, my family's like, I just want to go to these places. And I'm like, in my head, because I'm such a positive, I always try to be positive. I never want to talk about the negative or talk about all the shit that went wrong and how things got caught in customs and how I'm up all night climbing trees, like snipping things down, hoping I don't go to jail because it's illegal in that island or that country. I mean, there's just so many things that
like
you end
the dark
up doing.
side of the wedding.
Putting out fires constantly.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You know, and then there are the TV shows and, you know, all these things that none of that existed when I started. In my family, my uncle had a venue in Mississippi, so I grew up in like the summers, and he did a lot of weddings, and then it started as just a flower shop, and then it grew. Catering, cakes, then he makes dresses, I mean, it was one-stop shop. And he sold that after one of the Hurricane Katrina. But, you know, we were kind of around it in the summers, and you just kind of pick up a knack for it. And so me and my sister knew, like, how to decorate. This is way before Pinterest. Y'all, we were cutting magazines and making mood boards like we were in Girl Scouts with a poster board and glue and scissors, okay? Like I was in kindergarten. So,
that's so fun,
but that's how we put, you know, back then together. And so it's just, things are just so different, and you have to learn to evolve, if you love it. And so for 2 years, we just did it for fun at our church, at a Catholic church. And I worked at the hospital here, and I was a gymnast, so I still taught gymnastics.
Oh my goodness.
Always done a lot of things. And then people started to ask, I'm not Catholic, can you come and do my wedding here, at other places? And then that turns into, I'm not getting married in Nashville, can you come to this state? And then that turned into another country, and then that turned into, we own a private island. And
oh my gosh.
So it's just like, and in my head, I'm like, what's a private island?
Yeah, and how do I get there?
Right. I'm like, I'm really good at a few very specific things. But everything else, history, geography, pop culture, I don't know. It's okay. Google will tell me, or my team will tell me. Absolutely. They tell me what I need to know that's important. But it's just, that's Oh my God. And now Siri is talking to me. She is like my BFF.
She's a stalker.
She reminds me so many things every day, just like I ask her to at a deadline. But things were so different. And it's still very much a hobbyist industry where it's a passion. You love it. I just had a knack for planning, and then I had a knack for design. And again, Pinterest kind of changed the game for us big time, shifting our business model and our revenue and everything. But I always had people behind me saying, look at the business side, but I didn't know a damn thing about business. Let me be clear. Yeah. My parents were not entrepreneurs.
Okay.
So I had to learn all that the hard way. And, 10 years, so for 2 years when I'm like, we're going to go other places and do weddings. And then my uncle, who's like, Angela, you need insurance and you need a business license and you need these things.
All the stuff, yeah.
And then I'm like, I don't know damn thing. So I joined SCORE and got a mentor, which is a great free program for new, like if you want to open a small business, before you go to like Pathway Women's Center to get a loan to start your business, like go to SCORE first, okay?
That's a good shout out. I've never even heard of it, but
it's free. Fantastic. It's a great resource. Anything I say, I don't know if it still exists, but they've been around for a long time. My mentor, his name was Charlie Redmond. He was 87 years old and in all these nursing homes. I'll never forget him. I mean, obviously he's in heaven. This was like 25 years ago.
Wow.
So he was very aggressive. I'm the oldest. My dad was aggressive. I was raised to kind of be aggressive. I like to be nice about it, but when I need to take care of business, I'll do it with a nice smile on my face.
Absolutely.
I'm always polite. You never know what people are going through on the other side, and that's what the mental hospital taught me.
Sure.
Absolutely. Never judge a book by its cover, because some of the people that come in, the way they look, the way they dress, what they drove, it just didn't all add up. I'm like bouncing back and forth off of tangents. But anyway, I accidentally got into wedding planning. And so I did the things at SCORE, and Mr. Redmond would be like, GD, like, you need this and you do this. And I'm like, okay, a brochure. Okay, what's a brochure? I'm like, okay, yeah, I know what a website is. And like, it's just the stories and the community and the people and the connections and how the stars align is like, it's just crazy. Yeah. And so my best friend, who I was just telling you about, who just moved back to Nashville, she just moved to, it was either LA or New York, I can't remember. I think it was LA, and there was this club called the Edison. It's still there. Okay. And she was dancing, and it was New Year's Eve, and it was going to be live streamed. Now, this was way before a live stream existed. No one knew what live streaming was. It was going to be a camera, and we could see her dancing live at this New Year's Eve party. I mean, her parents were like, oh my God, we're so in. And then I'm like, this is so cool. I'm like, I want a website like this. Y'all, I had no clue, right?
Oh my gosh.
So I go to the very bottom, and I click on it's like site done by Active Color, and I click, and I like fill out a little form back then. And this is like 2000 or 2001-ish. And I fill out the form, and I'm like, this is going to be astronomically expensive. I don't even know what I'm doing, but I do have 3 jobs. And so it's going to be okay.
I do have 3 jobs.
Yeah, and I'm going to start this business.
I do have some income.
I'm like, and at the time I'm like, maybe 2,500. Like I had no clue, y'all. And so then it was a small business owner, and y'all, he is still my dude today.
Wow.
22 years later,
awesome.
His company has grown. We worked together for, I think I met him maybe 3 or 4 years ago, right before COVID, in person when I was actually in LA. So it's like the world is we've been doing some of the things that are so new to a lot of people, just in collaborating with I know it sounds cheesy, but like how the stars align and just like the gut feeling.
No, that's our motto thing. For everything.
It's just, it doesn't always work out, but most of the time it's like people don't have ill will. They're not bad people. They just don't know how to do something, or they don't know what they're getting themselves into. And that's where we've learned, like, ask more questions and all that. So, so got the business license, and you asked how to get to wherever you want to go. Yeah. So there's 2 very important things. Number 1 is people. Okay. Your people, your circle of people, your influence of people, who has been where you want to go and what was their success, versus listening to people who are in your ear who don't know what they're talking about because they've never done it.
Yeah, right there. Exactly. You just nailed that one on the head. We say that all the time. Yeah.
So not that there's not a purpose. There's a purpose for every person that is put into your life, but it's like you have a choice of what to say yes to and who to spend your time with. Right. And the older you get, and like I hate to be morbid, but when my dad got sick and then he passed away, and then the older you get, I love having more experience in life, but people start dropping dead around you. And you're like, I wish I could have spent more, not just time, but present time.
Right, where you learned and you took like information.
And you enjoyed each other. And you actually had a conversation. Because I would come to the Sunday dinner table when I was in town. And my dad's like, put your GD phone down. And I'm like, no, Daddy, you don't understand. There's so many emails and these brides, and like they're arguing over forks, and one's calling them a cafeteria and the other doesn't want to pay $1.60 per fork.
Oh my gosh.
Shit that is not important.
No.
Yeah.
Okay?
He wanted you to be present.
It's just not important.
Not important,
And hindsight's 2020.
And it's like, I think of those moments and I'm like, God, I was so self-centered and so selfish. But you just don't know. I was in my 30s I wanted to grow this major business that I didn't even know how to run. Yeah. And so that's where a friend of mine who was like, there's this organization, you have to be in it, like da-da-da-da. And he's like, I know what you're going to say. You're already in organizations, networking. You don't have time. He's right. I don't have time to do another thing. But I would say yes. But this was a big commitment, not only monetarily, but time. And it was very strict, and they had rules. And I don't really like rules very much.
Yeah, same.
He's like, but neither did my friend. I mean, he's like one of my best friends still today. He did all the lighting for all our events. He's like, we were together at Cheekwood when he's like, Ange, I'm a DJ, but I think I might add some lights to my inventory. Would you rent them for me? And I'm like, of course I would. Aww. It started out of his garage, and now it's like this huge, massive company serving wedding events and like music stuff. But he would not shut up. So they had like an info session, and I went. I'm like, okay, this is what I need. This is not what I want, but I need it. And we had this little round table thing. It's like a mock trial where they're interviewing you to see if you were even trainable and coachable. And one of the guys looked at me and he said, why are you doing all this? Like, why do you do over 250 events a year? Like,
oh my gosh.
What is your goal? What's your end goal? And I'm like, he's like, it's been a decade. I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, he's like, do you want to own a wedding venue? Do you want to have the biggest, like, what's your goal? Right. Well, I'm like, I just learned about private islands because we're doing a wedding on one. This is in the same year. And I think it would be nice to have my own island and have it be the happiest island in the world where everyone is hired based on psychology and no one would fight or argue and we're not going to talk religion and politics and everyone's going to get along and it's going to be the happiest island in the world. Oh my God, that's what I wanted.
Like a Kumbaya Island.
That's what I wanted because I believe in my happiness bubble. That is real. Okay. Again, where do you put your energy and who do you let into it? And so that's in 2010. And then I get into this group. And then the next question is, why are you serving on all these boards? That's great for your resume. But are you the smartest person in the room, helping everyone, and it makes you feel good? So you're a woman, you need to be needed. This organization was very male heavy. I don't care. Yeah. Half the guys I hang out with, they're like, you are like a dude. I'm like, I just remove the emotion and I use psychology, and a lot of women just don't have the access to the knowledge.
You're so much like us, it's crazy.
Just like us,
right?
You're just like us. I love
she's
it.
speaking our language like 100%.
It's just there's no yes, I mean emotion. There's no reason.
No room for it in business.
No, and like Americans, and y'all can say this because I've worked with people from all over, like we are different. We do not process emotions and information the same way other cultures do. It's just different. And you can't even have a conversation with someone about it unless they've experienced the same thing.
Right.
So I learn all these things. And so joining the right organization and getting around the right people who made me think that no one had ever asked me those things before because I'd never been around people like that before. And then having the hard conversation with myself and mentors and other people in that organization, I needed to get out of all these other organizations because no one was doing anything. I knew everyone. We were doing all events together. And so we did this thing that we went through this thing called a lifeline. Okay. And we went through it of like, when were you born? Where are we today? And then each year, what's the high, what's the low? And you start to see a pattern. And it's really fun to do it with your family.
What a great routine experience. I mean, what is that? Like
every year when you add to it, you start to think differently. And he's like, okay, and then we're going to do buckets because I'm around, he's talking my language, right? I'm around a lot of flower buckets and, we'd put money in buckets.
Oh my gosh. My dad was just talking about his buckets when he was here.
Yeah.
Your bucket, your mom's bucket, your sister's bucket. Everybody's got a bucket. I'm all, what is this
what
imaginary bucket? And when can I get in it?
I know.
Jump in the bucket.
Jump in the bucket.
It's like, so crazy. You have time buckets. And he's like, we're going to list out. And y'all, I've always been paperless. That's a whole nother story about healthcare and why I'm paperless and why I'm psycho. I've been through fires. I've been through floods. People have lost everything. It's like, just put your stuff in the cloud. But it's like, he wrote everything down. And I'm like, I can't do this. I can do it on a Google Calendar, an iCalendar, if it's in the cloud, and I'll kind of use that as my journal. And I can be consistent in names so we can run reports. Like I started to learn kind of the nerdy things that no one ever told me.
Yeah.
I did understand processes so we always use Google Drive before anybody knew what it was. I was carrying hard drives and time capsules and all the things. And technology has advanced, but there's a painful thing that happened to me of why I'm psycho about it. My computer crashed right before I graduated.
Oh, no.
And I lost all my clinical files. And you guys will feel this for 6 months.
Oh, wow.
So to go back 6 months with all those clients or patients, I mean, I had to recreate a notebook binder in 3 nights, staying up all night, having thoughts of if I'm not going to graduate, my parents are going to be so disappointed. I can't let people do all this pressure. We do it to ourselves. And I'm like, I think I might need to check myself into the mental hospital. I'm not kidding. I was so depressed. I've never sat on the floor for 3 days straight, not sleeping, not eating, crying my eyes out because I took my computer in the yellow pages back then to this computer doctor. He's like, honey, you didn't back up on a floppy drive? I'm like,
floppy drive?
A floppy drive? What is a floppy drive? And I learned real quick. I bought a whole box at Walmart. I'm like, everything is going on this floppy drive.
You don't know what a floppy drive is, probably.
I do.
Oh,
you do?
My parents are older.
Experienced. But it's those types of situations where when people are like, we write everything in a notebook because we don't want the client to think that we are playing on our phone. I'm like, so are you playing on your phone? Because I'm not.
Yeah.
Everything I do is live. The client knows they don't have to do one thing because it's all recorded. And they can go to their file at the end of the night and pull it up and go through whatever.
That's amazing.
But we also potty train their brain on what the process is.
Right.
So I've learned all this over the years. And this is a long answer. But just an overview, it's the ultimate thing has been people and processes. And we use psychology and a few other tools to make sure it's the right fit. And then there's the training piece, which is the internship program. Making sure it's a good fit. It's like dating. You can teach a lot of things. There's some things you just can't teach.
That's
so fact. True.
Why fight it?
Yeah.
It's
so
never going to work.
Yeah,
it's
work
just
ethic.
like a marriage.
So true.
You either go to therapy and you learn how to appreciate each other's differences, or it's just not going to work.
Sure.
It's just not. And that's where cheating and divorcing and all these things that could be avoided if you just would communicate with each other. But we don't know how to do that in America. So it's the people. It's also learning how to be a good leader. And that's where personal development comes in through Entrepreneur Organization, which is the organization that I've been in for years. And I've learned a lot from how to do things, how to communicate better, how to react better. When the pandemic started, without EO, I don't know if I would be where I am right now. I have full faith that we would be okay, but we also have other businesses and other streams of revenue. A lot of people in the events world did not. They didn't have safety nets. They didn't have things that they could pull from because it's not an industry that heavily focuses on the business model of how to spend your money and how to save.
Right.
Luckily, my parents had the Dave Ramsey model. I grew up in that household. And you don't use credit cards. Well, as a business owner, you got to learn a few things that you just don't talk to your parents about. That's great. But it's all those things that you learn. And then what you just said earlier, can you take it and absorb it? So there's times where I sit through lectures and a podcast and I'm hearing them, but I'm not ready for the information and I don't know how to put it in practice.
Right.
But when that situation happens and it comes up, I will think back, pull it out, and I'm like, I need to go back to that Arbinger thing and see how this was dealt with, which is a great communication tool when there's workforce, like trauma. So there are case studies and there's lots of things out there, but separating the emotions and then investing into your people, being an open book and being open to change and criticism will keep the loyalty, and you grow together,
right.
which you can go faster together with the same people. Then you're going to have people that outgrow you, and that's okay too. There's nothing wrong with it. You're going to have people that want to go start their own company. That's okay too. It ain't easy, because if it was, everybody would do it.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yep.
And that's where you just have to learn, communicate the right amount of information to what's going on. Sure. And it comes down to the people and the leadership.
And having the right team that helps you catapult to the next level.
It does.
That's super important.
It does.
And everybody learns differently. I mean, I know once you start having a lot of people on your team, you kind of have to adapt to how everybody learns, because I'm not going to be coachable like Kara's going to be coachable. Like, we're going to learn two completely different ways. And I think that's kind of where psychology comes in too, just being able to adapt, like you said, to each person's personality and their learning style.
Yeah, and there's so many tools, right? So it's like when I joined this group, they're like, do strength finders, and here's culture index, and here's, all, like I was a patient coming into the mental hospital, which is exactly what we used to do. Of all these assessments, psychologically, where are you? It's exhausting. So they're all good, and they all have great takeaways. But sitting down for the very first time I did Myers-Briggs, which is a bunch of questions on a computer, it spits out a report.
Yep.
You might read it, you might not.
Yeah.
Culture index, again, very, very, very good information. My brain doesn't register graphs very well. Nor does it register text. If it's not in a video or you're not showing me something, because that's how I learn, I'm probably not going to process it. So it's just knowing those things about yourself. You can either hold yourself back or find a solution. And that's where, like we were talking about Marco Polo, and people are like, oh, this is funny what people think about social media. Do you just like to look at yourself? You just seem a little narcissistic. Like, that is so cute, because if you were around me for 5 minutes or listen to my podcast or anything, it has nothing to do. I hate pictures. We do it. We're the face of our company. People buy from people they like and trust, and the people they see consistently, that's where they're going to go. Because we expose ourselves and we're honest people.
That's so true.
You have to show your face. Or a dog's face. They could be your mascot. You got to have a mascot. Something people that can connect the why and the personality to it. And then the people that don't connect, they're not your people, and that's okay.
Right.
I totally went off on a tangent.
Well,
That's
I like
okay.
it. I listened to your podcast, and that's something that you say a lot, is that not
Social
everybody
media.
is for you.
That's right.
Not everybody's for you, and that's totally okay.
What people see on social media and what they think about you, and then when they actually meet you,
Two completely different things.
the perception is shocking. And I'm like, A, thank you so much for telling me that. But B, like, what am I doing to make you think that? And if someone's seen a 15-second video and
We just talked about this.
Yeah,
it's a highlight reel. It is a highlight reel that people they're not grasping who you are.
No.
They're seeing the fake lifestyle, the pretty little area.
Yeah.
Not the real area. And so when they see you in person, they're like, wait a minute,
you're a real
you
person?
look different than you look in your... Well, because there's no filter on. And my hair is actually, today it's humid. It's humid.
Yeah,
I'm like, no curling on.
But no.
It's like, it's a
Going
highlight.
with that also, I heard on your podcast also, you said that you start having more problems like that when your following starts growing and growing.
Big
so
time.
you have to be prepared for a lot more positive feedback, but also a lot more negative
trolls.
feedback.
Yes.
Yep.
Because there's always going to be people that want to tear you down.
And does that affect you, or do you just kind of ignore those trolls?
So let's talk about the process.
Yeah.
I had this conversation this morning with my trainer at the gym. So a situation happened to him, and not that it was like a psych session or anything, but I could tell something was wrong immediately when I walked in. The energy was different. The mood was different. I mean, it's raining here.
I know.
It's like I didn't really sleep that much last night. My brother's business, like we were up late working on some stuff. And but I always, no matter how much sleep or I show up with a smile and I'm like excited about the day, because on the flip side of things, I can think about my patients, how much worse they have it. My sister's in a wheelchair, has been sick for years, can't talk, can't walk. It's fine. It's normal. We're lucky she's alive. I think of my sister when I'm like, God, my legs are so fucking effing sore. Like, I just don't want to get out of bed. And then I'm like, I reframe and I do a few things, that I thought was stupid before, where you have to have those near-death experiences where you learn gratitude real quick and you put yourself in place. So I knew this morning something was wrong. So we just went into our routine, and then he was like, something happened yesterday. He's like, I'm just really upset by this. And so he told me, y'all, it's not a big deal. I'm like, first you're a man, and you're really like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, you're on your period.
Your period. Like, I'll snap out of it. Yeah, I'm like, is there a boy period? I mean,
yes, there is, actually. Funny about it. I'm like, what is in the air? But he said, I was like, listen, clearly her brain makeup is totally different. So I use something called True Colors. There's 4 colors. So we talk in color code, and everyone in my life knows the color code. And so it's just a nicer way to approach situations. And so we are orange. Like, you just kind of know.
Okay.
Everyone has all 4. I didn't come up with the process. I'm certified to teach it. There's lots of stories there, but it works and it's easy. And I did learn about it in the mental hospital, but it's with colors and pictures, and you don't actually have to read. And so that helped. I tell everyone about it because it helps you understand.
Okay, what is it?
So is it like an aura? Like you're seeing the aura?
It's
colors?
Like it's called True Colors, and it's
but you don't see aura. Like you're not like you don't see colors.
No.
Okay.
No, not really. It's like orange people. They're super entrepreneurial. They are risk takers. We don't think things through. We're just like, yes, that sounds amazing. Let's do it. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But we'll get back up and we will do something again. But we will either learn from that experience, tell others and help, or our pride will get in the way. We will tell no one, but we will make damn sure it never happens again.
Exactly. Okay.
And then you just tell no one. And there's choices strategically sometimes depending on what it is. But when you just learn to be vulnerable and honest with yourself, when you say it out loud and you're honest to other people, it helps you be more honest with yourself. So I just reminded him this morning, I'm like, your brain is orange. You're all over the place. Like, we like to be live at the party. People are like, how the hell do you run businesses? But we're the risk takers. Blue people are very sensitive. They lead by all emotion. There's no rhyme or reason. It's all about feeling. They get their happiness from making other people feel good. In hospitality, you got to have some blue, because if you don't care about people, you read right through that. And then there's greens. They're very analytical. Research, numbers, introverted, analytical, facts, period, the end. And then gold is they are GSD kings and queens.
Okay.
They are doers. They get shit done. They are accountable. They own it. They're loyal. But when you don't follow their process, forget it. And that's where turnover happens.
What did you just do?
You're out the door.
Like you pointed at me.
You're out.
Door.
They quit.
I was like, oh shit, am I gold?
Well, maybe.
I'm a little gold orange.
Okay, what do you see here and here?
Well, so the thing is, everyone has all 4 colors.
Okay.
Everyone. But there's like a high and a low, a strength and a weakness. They call bright pale. It just sounds better, more like positive. But everyone has a bright color and everyone has a pale color. And it like evens out. And depending, it goes deeper. There's like a little numbers game that goes in it. And then when you go deeper, you see the numbers. And in the numbers, you start to see where you are really high, like bright, and then where you're really pale. And so those numbers, though, tell me everything. Because if you answer honestly, and that's where I tell people when I do it, I'm like, take your job hat off, take your work hat off, take your mom, your dad, your aunt, your uncle, any responsibility you have, take it all away. And I want you to look at the pictures and order these. Truthfully, what do you look at and get excited about? And people have to take a minute. I'm like, put your effing phone down and be present, please, for 30 seconds. And just play my game, okay?
Oh my God, I want to do it.
And so,
we're going to do it after this.
Like,
we're going to do that.
We'll do it.
We'll report back.
Yes, we will.
Not that you already know what we are.
We'll add a clip on the end.
It's like, but it tells me so much, right? So I know that if you're in the 20s, you got to be a leader. There's no question. You excel at a very specific thing, and you can't teach that. And then there's some things down here that you just shouldn't do. And so your numbers can be really close, or they can be very extreme. So when you're looking for people to run things, you need extreme. When you're looking for people to be a little bit more flexible, who can bounce with the different things in small businesses and who aren't going to like, oh my God, we need those people.
So is this a prerequisite that you do for people that come onto your team?
Even for dating, you guys.
Oh my God.
She's like,
I'm going to give her a test and then we're going to decide if she's on my team.
You're like
I'm
on a
extra.
date. Okay, I need you to put these pictures.
Oh, I wouldn't
in
even go
order
on a
for me.
date with you.
You're going to go home and give Reed the test.
I know.
Reed, I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
But it's so telling.
Oh, that's amazing.
And so it's like, I know that. And so when you just, your actions, when you are and you're comfortable and you're happy and you just are who you are, you just act the way without thinking.
Yeah.
But when you have new people come into your circle who you don't know their personality, they don't know you don't, not that well, there's just some things like you should have a filter. And I'm not good at that.
No.
None of us are. So we get put in our place sometimes, and sometimes it's totally valid. And I'm like when all the Black Lives Matter stuff was going on, and my parents raised me, you do not see color. Everyone is equal. My grandparents had a paint store growing up. Their entire staff, like my dad's partner was African American. It's like they were just like normal people. But when I would say that out loud, my team, who we are a very diverse team, we all look very different. When all that happened, she's like, I really wish you would stop saying that. It makes me feel like you're not seeing me. And I want you to see my color. And I want you to know I'm different and my culture's different. And I'm like, oh my God, I started crying, and I'm not a crier. Yeah. I'm like, I am so sorry. Yeah. I would never want anyone, no matter what gender, what color, it doesn't matter. It's all about how you make people feel. And I was raised by a blue mother. Right. So my blue runs thick, but in a business, you got to take the blue out. So he's very orange blue. I know this is a lot of education in one story with my trainer, right? So I'm like, you're orange, and it sounds like this person is green gold. And you just have to remember, they don't see things the way you see it. You did nothing wrong. It is not your fault. You apologized. You were simply being you. I would tell you the truth if it was completely inappropriate or out of line, but he didn't sleep last night. You know, these are the things we do to ourselves. Right. And I mean, we work ourselves up over, just take a step back. You apologized. You didn't do anything that you meant to do wrong. Yeah. And then you should be done. Like the energy is done. It
takes a lot of practice to get to that point, girlfriend.
It does, but that's where it's taken years. And that's where now, I mean, we all have moments, right? Sure. You catch me on day 3 when I've had no sleep, traveling on 4 different flights for 42 hours in Bali, and I get stuck with no hotel room and I can't leave because they're in quarantine. I'm going to sit on the floor and I'm going to cry. Yeah. And I'm going to cry hard.
I mean, we ran into that yesterday.
I'm going to rip somebody's hair out.
We ran into that yesterday, though. Like, we were talking to somebody. He obviously had a very long day, and he just needed to rant. And me and Kara happened to be the ones that caught that fire, and we just stayed quiet, and we just let him do his thing. And then at the end, he was like, okay, I'm so sorry. I'm good now. I just needed to get that out. And sometimes that's all it takes. You just got to let it go and get it off your chest. We were just going
to feel his fire if we added to that conversation. Because it was already intense. It was like, vent, and then did you sign the contract? I did sign it. Perfect. We're good. Bye. Have a great night.
We're good. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, and like you said, sometimes you just have to sit on the floor. You have to cry. You have to let it out. And then you get up and you feel better and you keep going.
Yeah. So. And then there's life, right? And life happens. Yeah. And like my latest, like, oh my God, I don't know if I can control myself. Like, y'all, I share these things, talk about these things. I just make fun of myself because I was never taught like how to handle these things. And so it's like I'm learning as I'm going. And so I preach and teach. Turn all your notifications off. Okay? I'm very strategic. Now I have certain things coming to my watch for certain reasons. Right before I went on stage to speak in front of like 1,000 people in Vegas, I was launching a new product, Walk and Work. And
listen to her. She said that so casually.
I mean, we should probably throw this out. She's also
casually.
a speaker.
Well, again, so my family, you know, their notifications and texts come through my watch. Now I'm literally, the guys, like they're introducing me, I'm talking, about to go up and talk, and I get a text from my brother. And I look at it, and I read it. My brother, they're supposed to have their second baby, which is their first boy, on December 22nd, was the due date. I'm a Sagittarius too, so I'm like, oh my God, I want it to be born on my birthday. But he's like, we're on a family group thread. We try to have good communication, let each other know what's going on. He's like, hey, just a heads up. I want you all to know we're in the hospital. We went into premature labor, the heart rate, all this stuff. And so my heart rate is just like, oh my God, I need to call my brother. Me and my brother are very close.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, now my brother is so chill and so is his wife. So it's not like I was worried, but it's like seeing that 10 seconds before you go up. And I can go talk to 10,000 people. I'm very comfortable. It's not a big deal, but it's like I have to tell people, I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I shouldn't have read this text. I'm like, can everyone please say a prayer if you're Christian? And then I'm like, shit, so it's like, I can't do any of this. So it's like, just don't do it to yourself. Turn your notifications off, be present. And so because I know how to do it, like I could still snap off and like get back into it because I was teaching and talking about something I love. But think about if I had to get up there and make a presentation that I wasn't really passionate about it.
Right.
And so that's why I tell people there's going to be situations that happen, but 99.9% of the time it can wait. And if you have a team, they can be making the decisions. And they are not going to do it the way that you might have done it. But if you go 2 weeks and step out of your business and you go completely quiet from your team, your clients, and everything, if you can't do that, you have a job, not a business. You have a job. And so that's where I was learned early on. I don't want a job. I want freedom. And I want to help and impact as many people. And that only serves you for so long before you keep building things up. But that's where now, like after all the pandemic stuff, I'm like, we need to back the F up. And yes, I'm productivity. And yes, I'm GSD. And yes, I'm like psycho about my time. Like, don't waste my time. There's a song by oh my God, I love this song. I told a man, I'm like, reach out to these girls and see if they can sing at like some of our events. Cause it's like, I'm like this, it's like this girl, or she's like, it's a guy. I'm like, well, it sounds like a woman. Maybe it's a girl featured, but it's like they wrote it for me and my brand. Like,
oh my gosh,
but it speaks to me.
Yeah.
That's what music does, right? Now it's kind of I'll do the remix and dance to it all day long. I don't like the original because it's sappy and it's sad and it makes me cry. Yeah. And I'm not a crier, but it's like a trigger of me just like, Tom, we only have so much of it. We have to sleep. It's very important. I didn't understand that in my 30s. And then Pat Summitt died of Alzheimer's. You went to UT. And I learned a lot from her when I went to UT. And I'm like, oh my God.
I didn't know you went to UT.
I did.
So
when Peyton Manning was there and T. Martin, and we won the championship. We were so freaking good.
No, I'm jealous.
I was so good. And I live in Peyton Manning's apartment right after he graduated. And I would get all of his mail. And my brother's like, can you just get his autograph?
What?
Yeah. It was so funny. It was so funny. So funny.
Anyway, back to it.
Anyway, then I get into wedding planning. Then I'm like working with all these people. I have no clue who they are.
You better not tell me you did Peyton Manning's wedding.
I did not. Okay. I wasn't when he got married. I wasn't a wedding planner then. So, but his brother Eli, which I did not do anything with him either. But I was I was like sitting on his lap in the car when he was like being courted by UT to like go to school there. It was just funny.
God, like, what an experience.
Again, everybody's a person.
Yeah.
Just because you're in the public eye or you do something and people watch you do it, a sport, singing, whatever, we are all people. We all have emotions. And it's all in how you deal with it.
Absolutely.
Is the most important thing. But anyway, when she passed away so young of Alzheimer's, I'm not a researcher. I'm not green in true colors. Usually I outsource that because they'll do a way better job. But when I want to know from my own personal, like with allergies, like I'll go down a rabbit hole and I will set a timer because I'm not going to obsess. Like shopping for clients. I love shopping for clients, but not for myself. Yeah. But I have to set a timer.
Oh, yeah, because you lose track.
You'll just keep going. And then it's not good for their budget and their time and like my time either, right? So you have to learn to put boundaries into place. I went off on a major tangent. I'm so sorry. But anyway, it's just like,
we're following you.
What color was I talking about?
Yes, no, you're so awesome.
But it's just all about making sure you're communicating in the right way. I know. Like,
well, and I think you totally, like, if we circle back on how you just balanced all that, like, you just did, like, I mean, you've got so much going on your plate. I mean, a lot, right? not only the planner. Well, I don't really think are you wedding planning still, or is that kind of?
So I still have the event business. I still own it, and I'm involved a very small amount.
Okay.
Because I have a great team. We have a communications director. It's
being handled.
It's like, and for them, y'all, I'm so OCD when it comes to design. And it's not good. It's not healthy. And like, they're like, we don't need orange you today. We need gold you to show up. And I am not happy when I'm gold me. And we know that. And it's not pretty. And I don't like being fake. But when I do it, when I need to do it to show up for my team, I will show up and I will try to be positive. But they're like, just please go home.
You're maybe the most self-aware person I've ever met.
Totally.
But it's amazing. Because I've done all these self-development, things. I have a family therapist. Like, there's a lot of things where I have to take a step back and I'm like, okay, the goal here is to help people because I am blue a little. I'm more orange than anything. I want to make an impact on people and they're not going to listen to me if I can't share what I've done wrong, which I don't see them as mistakes. They're all opportunities to learn better every day, or I would say every week. There's a big lesson that is tagged to $10,000+
Wow.
like that. And when you start losing money or you start wasting money, which I was not really aware of numbers and money for the first 10 years of my company. I just knew money was there. And we had kind of like a person helping, but really wasn't a CPA or accountant. And when I started to learn the number side, I was like, oh. So when I hired my first accountant and business manager, and they're like, so this is how many things you did. When people say, how many do you do? Or how do you split your time? It's my number one question. It depends on the day, but every year we get more focused. And the older I get and the more people I meet and the more impact that I make from like podcasting and people sharing my story and other people's story, the more I'm like, okay, I've done thousands of this. Over 50% don't make it. They get divorced. And some people spend a ridiculous amount of money. It's a crazy investment. And I'm like, oh, I'm so lucky that I get to work with all these rich, like, no, it's not luck. It has nothing to do with luck.
No luck.
It has to do with strategy, business, processes. Yes, it has to do with a nice person and morals and values, being honest. But at the end of the day, we have a process, 3 strikes you're out. We have a follow-up process. We follow our process. And so many businesses don't because they get so big and so busy and they want to scale. And then it starts to fall apart. The owner gets burnt out. I mean, it's literally a classic. I know exactly what's going to happen. And I want to help people. Don't do that. But what I've learned is you have to feel the pain first.
Yeah.
And some people aren't ready for that, and you shouldn't judge them for that. And I used to judge people. I'm like, wow, you're stupid. Like, not like that. I'm just like, this is such a stupid decision. Like, I've just told you, don't do it because of this and the why and how much money it costs me, but you want to do it because it's your idea. And that's one of the biggest things where I had to take a step back, and I'm like, oh, I need to poll my audience.
Yeah.
And I should ask people what they think, and I'm supposed to care. And I'm like, no, you need this. You need to learn how to time bucket and time block and look at your week, and you need. That's not the way to approach it at all. Yeah. So it's just my messaging was very off. And that's why people are like, oh, you're such a hard ass. And they meet me and they're like, oh my God, you're actually a fun person. And you're not like a military sergeant. I'm like, no, but things have to run like military, like a timeline. That's where you put a goal into place. And you learn to free up. And when you free up your time and you free up yourself, and every time someone makes a mistake on my team, it is 99% of the time my fault because there's a hole in my process. And they're helping me see that. They also have been conditioned to bring things a solution. Every once in a while, they're like, I really don't know what to do. I'm like, it's okay. We'll work through it together. I don't either. I'm going to send out an EO to my forum, my business forum. It's like our therapy group in business. And that's all through EO. And so having those people and not being embarrassed to just share because no one's judging you is like the most free thing ever.
Oh, for sure.
It really is.
Two things. One, I love what you said about and I heard a quote too from the broker at a boot camp that we went to that our company put on. And he said, if you don't have structure, it's a hobby. And if you do have structure, it's a business.
Yep.
So that's very important.
That makes so much sense.
Yep.
Very, very important.
Yep.
And I forgot the second thing that I was going to say. So I just went on a tangent about that. But I think that is really, really important because a lot of people don't have that structure and you need it for sure.
And even when you have processes and even when you have policy manuals and all these things, here I am, I'm like, okay, it's been over 2 decades, 22 years, X amount of businesses, entries, exits, close, lots of things. I'm like, and I'm still every day, there's something where I'm like, God, if I just would have known. The week of Thanksgiving, y'all, I don't do halfway things, okay? So when I set a goal, I set a goal. And after the pandemic, I was so unhealthy because life happens, right? My dad died. I ended a relationship of 7 years. We were very embedded into business together. He had his own business, but we shared a lot of clients. I'm very private about my personal life. I grew up in a bomb shelter with an undercover drug cop dad, and my brother owns a PI company, okay?
Wow, okay.
So the fact that I am very public on social media is a whole nother layer to mixing it up. Like my mother's like, your father would roll over in his grave sometimes at what you say publicly. And I'm like, but it's who I am, and it is because of him.
And you do it unapologetically,
I
which
do.
I love.
And I'm trying to help people, and I'm not for everybody. But oh my God, what was I saying?
Oh, but I do remember what I was going to say.
Oh, say it. The pandemic.
I love it. No, but what you said about no judgment is that's how I feel about Kara and I's relationship. And we said this a while back, maybe on our very first episode, is I can mess up and make mistakes because I'm still really new and I don't have to worry about going to Kara and being like, damn, I did this and I'm so sorry, because I know she's gonna be like, it's all good. Yeah. This is what we do to fix it.
Right.
And then we just keep going.
You need to make mistakes. Yeah. That comes down to the whole, learn. You have to learn. You have to crawl before you walk. You ride a bike, you fall. You have to do all those things.
Yeah. You have to.
I'm there as a security blanket a little bit for Maggie because I've already been in the business 20 years. So I've been down those, and I'm trying to protect her from some of the things as little as they can be. Like as of yesterday, I told her, sometimes little less is more when you talk.
It is.
Yeah. Don't say everything. As much as you want to be honest and tell everything that you need to share with the client, you don't.
Because we're both very blunt.
We're very open and honest, but sometimes it bites you in the ass. And
it does.
So it was a little lesson I just kind of was telling her last night. Like, I've already been down that road and gotten myself in trouble because I was too honest with a client or whatever it might be. And she's like, you're right. Thank you so much. So I'm trying to help her a little bit.
But that no judgment takes away the pressure.
Totally. Yeah. There's no judgment unless you really fuck up. Then there's major judgment. Well, not pushing record 4 times. We'll talk about that later. I'm just kidding.
But we've been there. So it's like, and so there's 2 differences. It's like there's age and then there's age and entrepreneurship. Right. Because there's people that are 70 at the Entrepreneur Center who had a full-blown ass career or in the military where someone operated their life for them. Yeah. So there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
They sign up for that structure, but then you retire, you get out, you have all these things, you see holes, you have ideas, you've got some money saved up because they taught you how to do that too, and you want to start a business. Yeah. And so you're a very young entrepreneur, and so someone who's 25 or 26 knows more if they started when they were 18 than someone who's 7. So there's this gap.
Absolutely.
A massive gap. And then you add in all the other things.
There's a lot. Energy level, like freedom level, like you have family. I mean, all that.
It's just different.
It's totally different. And she's balls to the wall right now. She doesn't have a marriage. She's not married. She doesn't have kids. She is eager and... I mean, I'm telling you, straight balls to the wall. This girl.
This needs to be like a Kara and Maggie love show, is what it is. Every podcast we do.
She is me at 22.
Every podcast we do, we hype each other up in some way.
I'm just straight up honest with you. I mean, if I thought you were terrible, I would tell you, but I think you're wonderful. And you are just what I was then. I'm just a little bit older now with a family, and my energy level isn't as... It is still there. Don't get me wrong. I'm not an old lady. But I don't have the...
It's the drive.
It's the drive to go show property for 5 hours a day. I just don't.
It's different.
Yeah, it's just changed. It's shifted. And that's where teamwork comes in. It's shifted.
And teamwork.
Keywords.
Keywords.
Yeah, that's it.
Shift. and mindset. And the older you get in life, there's shit you just can't teach.
Yeah.
And if you've never been out of your zip code or your city or your state or your country, then you add layers to things where you can't even have again, it's hard to have that conversation. Sure. So again, like through therapy and through different leadership, like I've learned there's no purpose for this conversation if it doesn't bring value to each other. Now, then you have people like your partner, your husband, your wife, your dog, your best friend, where you just want to share some exciting shit and they're not going to understand. Yeah. It's like my mom. Yeah. And I'm like, this was so, and you know, she's like, honey, that is just, now she's not going to say, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. So, you know, I try to show her because I'm visual, because I want, and you know, you want your parents to be proud. Like I was raised to make my parents proud.
Me too.
You know? So when I was like, oh, I'm quitting the hospital and I'm going to be an entrepreneur. And they wouldn't talk to me for a month, you know? And I'm like, oh, and I'm getting a divorce and I'm selling my house and I'm doing all these things because I don't want this shit anymore. This is a fake lie. And my eyes were opened up to a bigger world when I started to travel and do weddings and do, you know, the opportunities where I just said, yes, we'll do it. Yes, yes. I know we know our planning and our logistics. Like a planner, a real estate, anything, you can take us, plop up. I won't say country because cultures, things are different. A little bit. Lots of differences. But usually in our country, if you're good and you have a process and a structure and a foundation and a team, you can go anywhere and be successful.
We just did it 2 years ago. My husband builds and I do real estate. I mean, that's all I've ever done. And to be moved to a state where I don't know one person, and to be super honest and have the most successful year of my career was this year.
I was about to say, the second year that she was here.
Second year in a state I don't know anybody.
See?
I mean, she came into my life 6 months ago. That's definitely helped, you know, me be able to catapult a little bit farther and faster. But yeah, it's proof. You're right. It depends on probably the profession. Yours is the same as ours. Like where
Very
you can
much.
just throw us wherever. And it's personality. It's relationships. It's how people perceive you. And if they are gravitated to your energy, I feel like it just comes natural.
Yeah.
And growth just happens. Right?
Yeah.
And that's where it's important to understand what is your role in your business, right? And it changes based on your age, where you are in your life, and also just like the fuck ups, like the experiences, right? So when I first was like, he was in the Guard, he got deployed, like this was all when the war started. I didn't sign up for that. He was a chef. I worked at the hospital and I did fun events. We were in the same kind of world and we were married for 9 months. And then he gets deployed and that wasn't a choice. I did not grow up in the military. I don't know anything about it. I tried to go.
Tough.
It's just a different world. And it's not that anything happened or he's a bad person or anything like that. Yeah. It's just we were not ever going to work. I wanted to be this entrepreneur to grow these empires, and he was led to serve our country in the military. And then he comes back, he's like, I want to become a cop and protect people. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not going to work with us. So his goals and my goals were just different.
Right. They're both beautiful goals. His goals were amazing.
And that's okay.
Admirable, just like yours.
Yes.
But they didn't really mesh.
Not at all.
Yeah,
and there wasn't going to be a way to work.
Yeah.
Because all the wives, mostly, who grew up in that, and there's nothing wrong with this.
That's just not you.
No, they don't have a job. They have large families. I really didn't want a bunch of kids. Like, I just didn't.
Sure.
And so my brides and my clients are my babies, and I want the best for them, and I'm a fun aunt, but we all have different callings, right? So I was never called to like do the whole whatever. I was just like, my sister has 4 kids, my brother, like, I love it. And I'm like, yeah, I'll never do that. When I saw my first niece be born, like literally the doctor's like, look, and I'm like, oh my God, I can do that.
I'm going to fall on the floor.
I worked in a morgue with dead people. That was my first healthcare job. It's a whole nother podcast, but I didn't know that things did that, even from working in a morgue. But
it's not that glamorous.
Scarred the shit out of me. And then I'm working in healthcare. You see a lot in the operating room and stuff. I'm like, yeah, no. Listen, children are beautiful, and we need people to procreate, but I'm just not one of them. Nor is it in my like life goals or plan. So, because I want to do other things, we can always adopt. We have a plan for people like for human trafficking. We have a way to tackle it. We have a nonprofit. And then once those girls are rescued, they're off drugs, they can go work in Thistle Farms, for example.
I love that. Amazing.
Which is for women that come out of incarceration prison. Once they're drug free for a year, then they can come and work in events.
I'd like to learn more about that after this.
Yeah, that's amazing.
But we can't put them in events until we can trust them.
Sure.
Because they are brainwashed and on drugs to steal things of value.
Yeah.
And a lot of our clients, we're around a lot of valuable things. So it's, but 10 years ago, I didn't know how bad human trafficking was until my brother enlightened me. And then it's just my focus and my shift in business and life and where I am is different. 10 years ago, I'm still like hustle. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, okay, then what? And it was never about a personal goal for myself. It was more about helping the other person be the hero, which is all of what Donald Miller teaches, story brand. It's like, how can your client be the hero? And there's so many brands that do it and never say it. Like Apple, when you go in, they shouldn't touch your devices. They tell you how to fix it with your finger because they want you to feel like the hero. They're never going to say that, but psychologically, there's brands that I gravitate to because of those types of things. So when you really look at the why, and my mentor calls it peel back the onion, just keep asking yourself the why. Mm-hmm. And because we're Americans, we don't tag the emotion to why we're doing something. And that was the disconnect for me before the pandemic. Right. So with the pandemic, when it started, I mean, everyone was looking at me. Because when you own the company, and then there were multiple companies.
Well, and if you're destination weddings, I mean, they all stopped. So your business just took a total halt. Yeah.
Everything was pulled out from under our rug. So I went to Cabo for 2 weeks.
Yeah, girl. That was my place.
Yeah, girl.
Good, when we could still fly.
Yeah, y'all are two peas in a pod.
Like first people think I'm crazy for traveling when the world was shutting down. Two, why would I go anywhere by myself? And I'm just like, I need to turn everything off and I need to grid out another company. I know we can do social media and strategy. We've been doing it for all of my companies and brands since 2013 to be specific. We just never considered ever doing it for anybody else, especially for money, because that just wasn't our thing. But during the pandemic, a lot of my friends are entrepreneurs. And they're like, they had time. And they're like, okay, then they stopped paying all these big social media companies $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a month.
Oh my goodness.
Because they had it and they never looked at the return, the analytics. They weren't questioning it because they just kind of thought they had to do it. And that's what really bothers me. It bothered me. And I'm like, it doesn't have to be that way. And processes and word of mouth and follow-up skills. You can take, there's a speaker, Ryan Avery. He has 0 social media. He is a keynote speaker. And I don't remember how many figures he's at, but he's booked solid with 0 social media. And I know him, and I remembered his name, and I remembered his methodology, which is very rare for an orange, very rare for someone with ADHD, and very rare with someone who goes off on squirrels all the time. He's excellent. So it's not that you have to do it, but if you don't have the discipline or the structure or the sales team or the clients and contacts from the 90s and the early 2000s before social media, it is difficult to book your calendar to be seen.
That's such an interesting point because we literally just had almost a whole podcast on the social media concept and why it's so important. Then you need that to build your business. And you're totally saying the opposite. Where you do have a social media presence for sure, and you have
and I love it.
Absolutely, it's really fun to engage with people and people you don't even know, and they comment, and you're like, who are these people? But anyways, that he doesn't have any of that, and he's grown his business immensely, and not depending on $15,000, $20,000 a month in social media charges.
But it was all his relationships.
Yeah.
And so the reason I bring it up is because when people ask, how do you grow? How do you scale? How do you do these things? I've learned to ask for help, but I've also learned you got to tap into your resources and your community. And don't be afraid. People are like, why do you let a social media troll comment, which I am going to answer your question about how to handle it. I'm not involved in that part of the process that much anymore. And so that's where I had to make a decision from a social media perspective, because it takes a lot of time, effort, and energy of what's the strategy? Why are we doing it? What's the why? And make sure that it aligned. And how are we going to monetize it if we're going to spend 20 hours a week creating the content, editing the content, syncing the content, doing the images in Canva for the content, posting on 9 different platforms, engaging with people, engaging with the comments, fielding the DMs. It's a full-time business.
Yeah.
And that's why you have people that do social media marketing as a full-time job, because it is a full-time job.
It is not for one person.
No.
It's 4 different brain types. Now, I hear you when you're a small business and you're like, I'm a one-woman show. I cannot do this. I did a lot of what I did for 7 years by myself. My sister helped me on the weekends. Social media didn't exist. Anything adds problems. More money, more people, more problems. But I don't look at it like that. I'm like, how can I use this in a positive way? I can connect with people all over the world. I can reach people all over the world. Yeah. The speaking opportunities, the conferences, the collaborations. It's relationships. The people behind social media are real people, typically. Then you have other businesses, like bot businesses, where the shit's fake. But usually when there's a troll or there's a really mean, hateful, negative comment, it is a real person. And there's 2 things going on. Either one, they're mentally ill and they're angry and they just happen to be scrolling, just like you guys yesterday. You were the girls in front of him and you were probably the best for that at that time because you were willing to listen and not react.
Yeah.
So the comments that come in, that's a real person. They usually don't have a profile picture. If it's a TikTok, it's user 87 da 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 da. The mean, hateful ones, and sometimes, most of the times, my team knows how to respond now. But that's because I never went back and did it myself. I don't go back and change their comments. If there needs to be a change, I Marco Polo them, video texting, and we have a process for that too. And I'm like, hey, this comment needs to be changed and updated, and here's why. We're going to use these words because psychologically this could be triggered as this, and this is why we're going to do it. And half the time I'm on my treadmill or I'm working out while I'm doing this, so I'm doing my own personal goal, which was move 10,000 steps. Which is
on your podcast.
That one, like just that one. And that's why we screw up as leaders. We try to do too many things, too many goals, one personal goal, one family relationship goal, and one business goal, period, the end.
Yep.
Every year. You can have little subsets. I don't do subsets. I'm psycho. I'm like, I'm going to track it. I'm going to do it. 340 days, I did it. The other 25 days, I was in bed sick as a dog from either traveling, COVID, had the flu. This was after the first time I had COVID, where I almost died, like legit died. And that's where I'm like, okay, I didn't die. I understand motivation now. I watched The Greatest Showman like 100 times. I know every word to every song. I love the soundtrack. And I played it over and over on repeat because I was afraid to go to sleep because I didn't think I was going to wake up because I was so sick.
Oh, I'm so
My
sorry.
body, it was just so bad for 18 days. And my dog was dying next to me, who also had cancer, that I didn't know yet. So that, so my primary care doctor, who I'm friends with a lot of these doctors because I worked in the hospital, and she's like, you are a gymnast. You know what you need to do. You need to lose weight. You need to get healthy. You need to sleep. Like, I know it's been a really stressful year, and you almost died. And you can't serve anyone if you don't take care of yourself. I'm like, my mother says that to me all the time. Oh, shut up. But I'm like, she's right, Yeah. And then I catch myself saying it, like, if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else. And there are going to be times, like last night, where I need to stay up till 3:30 in the morning. Like, I actually could not go to bed because I needed to get all the stuff out of my head after these 2 days with all these people, and it's my brother's business. So it's like I wanted to grit it out because I'm so excited and my adrenaline is going, but it's not healthy when you have to be up. I'm like, okay, I've got to be up in 6 hours. And, you really want to try to get, like, we even put sleep on my schedule, and it's a color coding system. But we do all these elementary things that help me get through processes. Why do we use Marco Polo? Why do we do what we do? It's not because I'm vain. It's not because I want to see myself. 100%. The first honest answer is I travel for a living, and I have since 2010. I travel a lot. I I get extremely motion sick. And so when I stopped tumbling, I kept breaking bones. The doctor's like, you're not going to the Olympics. You're in your 30s. Like, stop. I still do it.
My goodness.
But I have gained weight, lost weight, because I break a bone. I get depressed. I work myself to death. I gain 100 pounds. And then the next year I will balls to the wall. I will lose, it's not healthy. Right. And so how do you sustain when life does get bad? When your dad's going to die and your sister's going to die, and I can step out of my company, but oh my God, I'm worried about my kids who are my team members. I mean, I'm old enough to be some of their mom, but it's just like, I have to confide in them and rely on them.
It's so tough.
And
I do this to her because I micromanage, because I feel like, one, I've done it on my own for so many years. There's a way I do things. And if I don't do it, it's not going to be done right. In my own mental capacity, it's not the right answer. And so I'm constantly, did you make that phone call? Did you do that? I do it to my husband too. It drives him freaking crazy.
And we've had this conversation too, is like, because she'll ask me questions like that. And I'm like, yeah, done. And I don't want to come off across like, yeah, bitch, I did that already, because that's not what I mean at all.
No, but I just need to know it was done. And did it get done how I would have done it? That's my own thing that I'm learning to get over.
Yeah.
Because this is, like I said, it's my first
And you've never
time
had a team.
Somebody behind. Yeah,
and
exactly.
it's different.
It's totally different. It's
and a lot of
my responsibility and to somebody else.
It's your life.
And hoping that you're going to do it.
It's your life.
It's my life. It's my livelihood. Yeah,
and
it's my income. It's my reputation. It's everything.
More importantly.
Yeah.
This has to do with when you start peeling back the layers, we all need money to live, but it's really about reputation.
Yeah, because once you fuck that up, it's gone.
Right.
Gone. And you can't get that back very easily.
And now with reviews and social media, you really have to become self-aware. So going back to your question, when we started doing social media, it wasn't, that's a whole nother story. It's just cute and funny how my brother's like, there's this thing called Facebook, but you're too old and you're not in college anymore. And he was in college because he's 6 years younger. And he's like, it's this thing. And I'm like, oh, that sounds cool. But, I really didn't care. We were busy, y'all. Busy. We didn't advertise. We literally were just doing what we said we were going to do. Imagine that.
That's amazing.
But I had this thing called a project management system and a CRM system because I learned Salesforce working in the hospital before anyone knew what a CRM was and how we were paperless, and every note and every checklist and every psychotic little thing was in this process and in this system. I don't need to ask my assistant if she finished now. We all, like yesterday at the last minute, I'm like, oh my God, we're out of copies of these things and I've got to go teach this class. Like, I need you to get this to FedEx so I can pick them up on the way. And I didn't even plan on making copies. But then my brother texted me and he's like, you are bringing those, right? And I'm like, I didn't think your guys cared. They're all men. I'm like, I didn't think they care about that. He's like, no, I want you. Like, well, thanks for telling me. I should have asked my expectations. And my team doesn't get as involved because it's my brother. And I'm like, still follow our process because I forget things just like that yesterday, but I don't get upset. But I did text and say, hey, I want to make sure you got my email at 3:30 in the morning because, and she's like, yes, I emailed you back. Yes, I checked it off. And yes, the notes are in the calendar, which is all of our processes. I just didn't take the time to look because I was so back to back yesterday. I didn't have 5 minutes to pee.
But I love that you have everything so scheduled. I think that's so important. We do it on every Monday. I call it Mondays with Maggie. We sit down. I know. And we write down everything. And definitely our weeks change because showings pop in or, whatever appointments come in. But at least we have some structure so we can get through it. And I'm going to so follow some of the things you've been talking about today.
Absolutely.
Because I think if we can put some of that into action, not only our goal is to scale, obviously. That's just where we want to be. We want to be the number one realtors in Nashville. Yeah. And that will happen. I strongly feel like that's going to happen. But I want to make sure before you scale so large, you have everything in place. Because my husband owns his own business and I know that if you don't, once things crumble, they can crumble really quickly. And you don't
never get it back.
You never get it back and you have to start from ground zero. And
that's why we need an intern.
We worked our asses off to get here. So I'm not going to go back 20 years. That's not even an option.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just about scale. So a lot of people who own businesses, including myself in the early years, I didn't know what scale meant. Y'all, I didn't know what net and like gross. And so this is how I remember it. This is what the mentor at the time taught me. All my mentors have been older men. And it's like, again, it's like a dad figure to me. And you know, my dad was my hero. He taught me everything, like how to never get taken advantage of and But what he didn't teach me is how to not overreact and not use the emotions. And I'm a woman and I really care. I do. But you can't help everybody. You're not for everybody. But oh my God. I'm like,
net and gross.
So this is how he taught me. He's like, Angela, it is gross how much money people spend on weddings. It is just, it's gross. It's disgusting. And that is the number that you're going to see in your bank account when you're doing a $5 million wedding. And then that money is going to go out. And then there should be X amount of percentage left over for the business for the overhead and then profit. And that's how you pay yourself first. And then this is how we need to make sure everyone's tracking their time, tracking their hours. Not because I give a shit what you're doing or you're a control freak or I don't trust you. This has everything to do with client education and you knowing your self-worth.
Absolutely.
And how much things take you. It's a whole different ball game. And you can objectively look on that board, which I started to tell you this a few minutes ago, where we did 250 events and they're like 30 something, like 32 events. Not only did I lose money, I paid that client to do it out of my money to live because I wasn't charging appropriately, nor were we tracking things. So there were all these holes.
Know your worth.
Yeah.
And then he came in and he shadowed me for a week and listened to everything I was saying. At the end of the week, we had a day. And he's like, this is the make or break day. I mean, they're going to fire you because you're not going to be able to handle this, or you're going to do it and it's going to change your life on a piece of paper right here. You know, I'm like, okay, what is it? The first thing is you're going to stop answering your phone. Now, I know for realtors and my brothers, like in security, it depends on your industry, people, okay? This just has to do with boundaries and your time.
Boundaries.
Boundaries, boundaries.
Too. Yeah.
So, and especially during the pandemic, I'm very good friends with my real estate agent who does different things with us, who's like a short-term rental expert. And like, that's her niche. And I understand that phone call could be a $10 million job. Like, I get it. But you should not be the one doing it. Yeah. It should be your assistant. And your assistant, your communications director or your assistant is the one who fields all of that. And your clients need to know they're in charge, not you. You don't want me in charge because it's highly likely it's not going to happen. Because like Ron Avery taught, there's 3 people in your business and you start off being all 3 people. You have the person that starts the stuff. Then you got the doer in the middle that is going to make sure shit is getting done. And then the third, it's like it was neat. Like he's like the cheerleader. It doesn't even matter what the words are. Yeah. It's just understanding where you're good at. So I am great at starting things and speaking and the relationships, and I'll talk to anybody. But sometimes it's too much. I vomit information because I care and it's too overwhelming. And then people don't want to listen anymore because they have no clue where to start with you. So I still struggle with that, but like my presentations now are in my classes and my workshops, I'm like, this is so basic.
Just structured.
Yeah, like we're only talking about one acronym today. Like I have to stay at one.
No squirrel. Yeah. You can't squirrel.
But after doing it for years now and having a coach, that's when our social media stuff started to take off. That's when people started paying attention. That's when people started responding. When I started showing my family in my stories, which is like more of my personal life a little bit, the shit disappears if you don't highlight it. And you set up your settings correctly and you have your location services turned off for security purposes. Like there's all these things. People see you're a real person and they start to tell you things where it's like, wow, I didn't realize the impact I was making, or more importantly, the impact I was putting off, which is not the real life. So that's where people started to tell me, I didn't know you had a sick sister. I didn't know that you homeschooled her oldest child for 2 years. And this was way before the pandemic. I didn't know that you helped raise like the 2 kids. And then during the pandemic, the 2 middle-aged girls now, they were obsessed with TikTok. I got back. That's a different story, different day, but I love TikTok. And there's good and there's bad to everything. But they got me back into dancing. I started dancing for fun. I started doing TikTok for fun. And I do my personal TikTok account for fun.
Oh, wow.
But that's what people respond to. And all the people I follow and all the people who they follow me or I follow them, I know we have met either in person, at an event, on a webinar, globally. it's funny. Some people, they're like, oh, you have a really small following and and you don't have a blue check mark. And I'm like, everyone's goals on social are different. What's your goal? And then when you turn around and ask them, they don't know well, I have a business, so I just have to post shit.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't work like that. And how's that working out for you?
Right.
Well, it sucks. It's a time suck. Well, you don't see the value in it because you don't have an ROI and you don't understand. Social media was created to be social with real humans, with real emotions, and help solve problems.
Yeah.
And then you, of course, have all the bad things. I look at the good, and then you have things like monetization and content creators and podcast sponsorships. And there's just so many things now available right at our fingertips. And there's people out there with great stories, but the piece they're missing is the plan and the strategy. And why are they doing it?
Right.
So when they say, why are your numbers low? I'm like, well, what does that mean? Because if you have a product that's X amount of dollars, you do the math. If you have 100 people in your audience buying what you do every day, and your goal was $1 million to sell a service or a product, how much would you need to charge for that product to have 100 people buy every month and scale to $1 million? Right. You divide $1 million by, and that's those two things, just like a lifeline. Where are you starting? Where are you headed? What are the patterns? Where have you fucked up? How can you help and make sure this pattern stops?
Right.
And we don't take the time to do these things because we're so busy. But that's where burnout and turnover.
Well, that's it right there. You have to sit back. You got to reflect. You're not going on the right path. Then you got to change paths, or you're done. Like I feel like you only have a certain amount of energy and time that you can put into one thing.
Right.
And if it's getting dispersed in the wrong directions, which that goes back to you and me being like, I can do it all, and you need to send it out to other people, and you're the same way. But like, you got to give a little bit of. You got to get a little bit off your plate.
That's how you grow.
You got to empty your brain a little bit.
Yeah, that's how you grow. You can't grow without delegating.
You have to.
But that brings me to two things that I want to ask you before we go. So one, I want to hear about your book, and two, I want to hear about your podcast and how, like you said a minute ago, to monetize that.
Yep. So with podcasting, so the guy that started my podcast, he used to work with Dave Ramsey. Again, this was years ago. We met because I went for a podcast with Dave Ramsey, and I mean, this was so long ago. And he was like, your stories are batshit crazy. And I didn't know why he was so interested. And then later, like months later, he reached out to me and he was like, hey, my name's Kevin. I'm starting my own agency. Dave knows, like, it's all good, big supporters. And he's like, there's a few people I really want to work with. And he's like, I'm going to do this thing called brand managers. Were not a thing back then.
Sure,
okay.
No,
he's like, I'm going to charge this much. And I'd really, I want you, you're like the Oprah of weddings. And I'm like, oh, but I don't want to be the Oprah of weddings. That's not what I want. I'm like, I want to be the Oprah of productivity, like to teach people to get shit done so they can be present and still be happy. Like, that's really what I want. And he's like, well, that's more of like a personal brand. And I started to understand the difference between a personal brand and a company brand and how the personal can support. But again, this is when YouTube first came out. This is a long
time ago.
He's like, your stories are nuts. He's like, can I have a week of your time? And we're going to video you telling all these stories. And then we're going to take the audio and make it a podcast. And then we're going to give it to a lady named Darcy. And she's going to make it a book, a tips book. And we're going to wash, rinse, repeat your material. And we're going to schedule it in this thing, which the thing at the time was Infusionsoft, who I just met the two guys, the brothers who started it, in Vegas at a conference when a client put me on his private plane, and he's like, you work too hard. There's a better way to life.
Amazing.
And that's where I learned about funnels and the marketing and the copywriting, and social media was just starting, but I just hadn't connected it all. I knew pieces of it. And so I started to learn more and got into that world a little bit. And that's where we learned all this other stuff that we could do and how to positively use social media. And so I never done it all by myself. I've always had a team because I realized at a young age with Kevin's help, or a young age in business, I couldn't do it all by myself. So I literally showed up, I talked, he directed it. He taught me what was the story? what's the outcome, and what you like. There was structure, and then I started to learn kinda how to put my sentences together. I still struggle clearly. Like I have a coach who teaches me how to be a good speaker.
Well, you're doing a damn good job.
How to finish a sentence, okay?
I need that coach.
I'm like, but I can tell them this and this and this. Anyway, it's like stay on track. But people learn more that way when you just can stay on track, but it's so hard. Yeah. But he's the one that taught me in 2017. So we launched the podcast. Consistency is everything. We've never missed a week. He taught me how to batch my content. So prior to COVID, yes, I could do 3 days out of the whole year and be done, because I would just share stories and questions that we get through social media. But that was too long of a gap. And then when COVID started, we had to unhook everything. And I'm like, I'm never doing this again, because you can't plan ahead that far in advance.
Sure.
So then we're like, quarterly is good enough. Now, even last year, with just, you have to listen to your audience and what's going on. It is really about what people are asking you. And that's how you find your superpower and your expertise and what people are interested in, because you have what they want. And before, it was just like, I've never worked for clients. I know that sounds bratty, but it's like we did a good job. We were good communicators. We made people happy. We made them feel good on both sides, the vendor side, the business side, and the B2B side and the B2C side. Our vendors are still our clients too.
Yeah.
And so when you can master that, then you can start another company. Then you can free up your time to do more things, make a bigger impact, but you only do that through delegation. And so like we put a whole framework together with Kevin's help, and we always have a mentor and a consultant we work with every year, new every year. They bring fresh ideas to the table. And when the pandemic started, it was just, I was doing the 10K a day, movement, dancing, didn't put a whole lot about it on social media. I got a treadmill desk. I knew I needed to move. The world was shut down and I needed to move. I couldn't sit at my desk for 15 hours and just work. Even if I worked out for 2 hours and did cardio for an hour and weights, what I was eating and when I was eating was a problem. And then that would trigger inflammation and my calories. So I was on a personal journey to like just fit back into my clothes. 1, 2 is just to feel better.
Yeah.
Fucking feel better. I didn't feel good. I wasn't eating good stuff. It was just bad. And then things start to happen just organically by talking about it, and people start DMing and people start asking. And because I'm so blunt, people are blunt back to me. And they're like, did you have surgery? What pill are you taking? Like, girl, what are you doing? Like, I love these questions.
It's a treadmill.
I love them because I'm like, I'm not just going to go, no, it's not a drug. No, it's not a tea or a coffee. It is long-term longevity of sustainability because of where I am in my age. Yes, all of our brides, they'll take phentermine for 3 months, lose, of course, 40, 50 pounds, start eating again, get off of it and then they gain all the weight. It's just not sustainable, and it's not good for your marriage, it's not good for your self-esteem, period. I can be confident at 250 pounds. I can be confident at 100 pounds because where I am in my business, I bring value no matter what. I will hold my shit together. But the older you get, your body starts to say something different. And I was getting sick, like physically sick, where you could see all the rashes, and it was from food. So I'm like, okay, I start moving. I'm like, I got a treadmill desk. That's all I'm doing. And I learn a TikTok dance a day with the kids. If they do their homework, if they be quiet and not aggravate each other. So, then they're like, oh, whatever. People just don't kind of believe you. And then I stand in front of the mirror and I take pictures of myself every day, and I still don't understand it. While my little teenager, they're like, yeah, these are mirror selfies. Like, I'll know, the first song, selfie song that came out. I'm like, what is this? I still don't understand it, but I do it because it's documentation. And
keeps you accountable.
It does.
Physically see your journey.
Absolutely. Yeah. And as business owners, why do we start our own business? Because we don't want to answer to anybody. We don't want rules, and we don't want accountability. And we are our worst enemy. And we are killing ourselves.
And with that, you have to track it.
You have to
see where you started, see where you're at, and see where you're going to end.
And then to put it out there publicly, and then other people are being motivated by what you're doing. And then it's a whole other, if you stop and think about it, like I don't ever stop and think, okay, this is $5 million, 1,000 people coming from 32 different countries. All this shit has to work right, and damn, I hope everybody shows up and nobody gets sick. Like, I don't think, like, we just do it, right?
Just do it.
We know how to do it. We do it. We do what we do. I don't think like that. So I've never had that mindset. But when you step back and look at it the first of every month, it's like, oh, wow, I don't like to say fat. I don't like to say overweight. Like it's just unhealthy. And we all go through it at parts in our life. It's what are you going to do about it? And so even my friends right now, they're like, oh my God, you're so skinny. And I'm like, well, you're so overweight. So I look so skinny to you because you're not healthy.
Yeah.
I don't say it like that, but I'm thinking it. So what I really need to say is, well, when you're ready and you want to feel better and become more healthy and you want to live a longer time and you want to sleep better and you have a better sex life and all that stuff, like just ask me.
Goods.
I'll share it with you. But I learned from a mentor, don't tell people until they ask for it. And when they ask for it, that's permission to tell them the truth.
To be blunt and tell them exactly
Absolutely.
what they want and maybe don't want to hear.
It's not what they want to hear.
They don't want to hear it.
So that's where but I've learned over the years, because of all the things I am and how my brain is wired, I'm not going to do anything if I'm not having fun. Yeah. So, and it's still 80-20, but I'm like, I have to have good music. I have to have loud music. Like I have to have air condition. I will do hot yoga and hot box and shit like that, but it's not preferable. And, but it's like, there's just things that I know about myself. So you create that surrounding.
Sure.
To do it. And then when people, it's like, okay, enough. We're going to put a program together. My team was like, too many people are what do you want me to tell these people? So we had a copy paste, just, this is it. It's kind of like moving a customer through the journey. You sign the intent to buy this house. You put the money down. It's like, it's a customer journey. Oh my gosh. Y'all, I will just like keep on talking.
Don't even tell me, Maggie. Is your phone not?
Oh, is it?
It was at like 70%.
Well, you kept getting up and checking it.
Yeah, because I was afraid that they were going to...
Well,
is it recording? Please don't tell me you didn't record.
I'm recording vertical.
It recorded for an hour and 13 minutes.
How long have we been talking?
An hour and 30.
Oh my God.
Shit, it hasn't recorded the last 15 minutes?
They recorded till 15 minutes ago, yeah.
Let me see if mine's
But my phone
I hope
got
yours
to
is.
2%.
Well, we need to do our wrap up at the end of it.
We can merge it together, but...
Oh shit, Maggie, you should have charged it or plugged it in.
I did. It was at 70% when we started on airplane mode. We've been going a long time.
I am so sorry. See, when
Don't
I do
say
my
sorry,
own
it's sorry
podcast,
for what?
I have to have alarms.
Okay,
So,
but I do
we
need
will
your
wrap
phone
up.
because my phone will...
It's on the counter. I think, is my cousin at the front door?
Yeah,
I kept
so-
hearing like babies or something. They're visiting from Georgia. I thought I heard the door open. And then
Oh my God, we should have set an alarm. I normally set an
Or just
alarm. I'm like, oh my God.
But at
like,
least,
I'm about to pop open a bottle of wine and keep talking.
No, we
yeah,
do.
We have it all there. So the YouTube video might be cut at like...
Well, and I have it,
1:15
You have it too.
but it's
to 1:30.
vertical. I mean, it's vertical.
Okay. So
I'm happy to airdrop it to you.
Should we just do a wrap it up?
What were we talking? I'm like, how can we wrap up? I mean, I know how I want to wrap up.
I love
I know, and we can talk.
I love you guys. We match each other's energy.
you. No,
That's like when we
I
met
love
Jim,
it.
when I
That's why
talked to
we
Jim.
can sit here and talk for 2.5
Ever.
hours.
We do, and we do.
I love it. Okay.
Ever.
So do we want to wrap it up?
I do.
Yeah, let's just-
What were we talking about?
Let's just circle back to let's just quickly how you balance it all, and I guess it would just be your team.
Yeah. I mean, I have like a little wrap up thing that I do with
Okay.
every podcast. So
Okay, do you want to just start with that?
yes. So to bring it all together and bring it all back home, frameworks and processes, that's what works. And so when people keep asking, how do you hire the right people? How have your people been with you for so long? I'm like, they're not my people. They're their own people.
Right.
But we're like a family. That's where coaches and consultants, they're like, you have this little framework in your head that you need to share with other people. And there's this whole like GSDP. My real last name is Proffitt. It's the number one question I get. Is that a state, like a branding thing? My ex-husband's last name is Proffitt. I was 21 years old. That is not why I married him. I was not an entrepreneur then, but everyone professionally knew me as that. So I just kept it. It was just easier. So, and it works out, for what I do. So we started doing everything with P's, like everything is a P. And I had to learn, the first P I really had to learn was profit, like how to make a profit in your business. And then there were all these other P's. And so we came up with a 4P process that works. And so the first one is people. And this is the GSD model. When people want to know, how do you get to the end result, which is get shit done and be happy? These are the 4 Ps. This is the little model. You got to have the right people. So how you get it? Use this. It doesn't have to be True Colors. It doesn't have to be me. Use a psychology tool to pre-qualify to make it a good fit. Hire, slow, fire, fast. I think it's a book, but that statement is true.
Okay, hire, slow, fire, fast.
People is the first thing. The next thing is processes. You have to have processes. Now, I think process is in the cloud. However, what I teach in my process when we do workshops and we do consulting is all about time blocking and understanding where your time as a leader is going. And y'all, it's freaking painful as shit. I did it for a whole year before I bought into it silently. And then at the end of the year, when we ran the reports and it integrated, and I was like, oh my God. And none of that was revenue generating, but worse, it's not always about the money. The money comes. None of that was serving me. None of that was making me happy. Wow. So what is your process for like saying yes to the right things, to allocate your time? Because if you're not allocating your time correctly, no other process is going to work. Then the third one is productivity, which prior to COVID was all about automation, because I would teach people how to automate stuff to free up their team to do more meaningful things that humans can do with connection and emotions, and computers will never be able to do it. Go watch the YouTube video of Alexa and Siri talking. It's hilarious. And so the productivity piece has now shifted to the wellness piece, which is the walk and work. So how can you walk and move and get work done? The outcome is going to be, you're going to be more productive anyway. So we don't even need to talk about it, because when you are focusing and taking time for yourself, and again, 80-20, you show up differently, you feel differently when you're sleeping, making an effort to sleep. When your boss, I hate being called that, or your team members, you have boundaries in place. Again, there's time where shit happens. And I'm like, I know it's 3 a.m., but I need you right now. It doesn't happen that often, but that shit happens. But I always preface, I'm so sorry I'm bothering you on a Friday night. I'm self-aware. I know it's 8 p.m. and if you don't respond, I get it, but I'm dying on the side of the road and I don't know. I mean, again, it has to be a really big situation. Yeah. But you got to realize as a leader, the productivity starts with you. Mm-hmm. And if you're scattered, your team is scattered. And your team can quit. And that's why they quit. They don't feel successful because you don't empower them to be successful, because you don't have your shit together. Mm-hmm. And that was me for a little bit. And then I learned. And so productivity is redefined to me as, let's back up. Yeah, we all want to get shit done, but like, let's have fun. And like, let's just focus a little bit on yourself. Right. So the women who tell me you're not married, you don't have kids, I travel for guess what? No, I'm not. But I love my boyfriend dearly, and I don't care about being married. It's not important to me. I'm still, we all have relationships, even if it's not romantically with someone. And then my sister's children, I've been very involved. I'm still very involved. We FaceTime, we mark up. I'm still very involved. It's situational. It is your priorities, and that's a fucking excuse. Mm-hmm. And now I'm just going to say it. Period. It was my excuse, because I didn't want to say on social media what I was doing or telling anybody what I was doing, because what if I gain the weight back? What if I go through another episode? This will hold me accountable publicly, which would be an embarrassment and let everyone down if I don't stay on it. Right. 3 strikes, you're out. This is my 3rd strike of losing 100 pounds, and I'm done. It will end up killing you. And I feel like a cat, like with 9 lives, right, where I've had these really bad things happen to me. And I'm like, I don't want them to happen to other people. And then the final, and we made profit part the 4th P, because if you don't know the right people and you don't have the right people, you're not going to make profit. Mm-hmm. If you don't have the processes, your profit's going to reflect it. Absolutely. If you're not productive and your people aren't productive, it's going to reflect in your profit. Yeah. And when you see that money and you see where it's going and you track it and you have someone from the outside come in and audit you, it is a wake-up call, and it's an opportunity to do better. So those 4 Ps, amazing, and going through the GSD process, like that's pretty much where, we do consulting and training. I personally really love focusing on the wellness piece, but we teach TikTok Academy because it's fun. But the wellness piece is right in there with how to do TikTok for your business, You don't have to dance. You don't even show your face. In fact, real estate, oh my God. The content that we've done with like real estate agents, like teaching them how to use their phone.
Okay, well maybe you need to help us.
Is incredible. But that's the limiting belief we all have.
Yeah.
Is we need fancy lights, we need fancy audio, we need to pay for all these things. We don't have the people. I've been a one-woman show. When I'm traveling, I am a one-woman show until I hired someone. Like, I get the content, I would edit the content, I would post the content, I would engage with the content. It was sucking my time dry. And I started to hate it. And that's when I'm like, we have to allocate this to someone else.
Right.
But I have to train them. And I love my girls, like I love my team. And then my boyfriend's like, why don't you just edit yourself? Like, this is really painful to watch. And I'm like, because you know what? The next video I get is going to be even better. And then the next video I get is even better. And they need to know how to rig some of this stuff because in the future, this is buying us time to be present together. Because if I stop and do it for them, again, the Apple, I think of Apple and my sister. My sister can't use her hands. So if I can't use my hands, I can train and teach and guide and lead, and it's only going to make us better in the long run. So I'm doing it long term. And he's like, oh, but I just want to take your phone and do it.
Yeah.
So it's difficult, but it's all about the right things and the right people and the right color and true colors to help you do those things. And there's 4 different colors. There's a 4-step process, and we follow our own process.
Yeah,
for sure.
So that's
so
how I've
amazing,
gotten
Angela.
to where I've gotten. To loop it back.
To loop it back.
No, we can talk forever.
We could talk forever.
Oh my God.
But thank you so
We
much
love
for
you.
coming on.
Thank you so much,
I'm
Angela.
so glad we have met you.
Yeah.
You are so great. And
thank you.
this episode is going to be fantastic.
I
And
know. I think
thank
I've
you
learned so much today that
No,
I can't even
seriously.
like explain how appreciative.
And we could talk for probably another hour or 2 hours.
easy.
And
Yeah.
I know we have to wrap it up, but just thank you so much for
You're
coming
welcome.
on.
Thank you
Seriously.
for being here. If y'all have any questions, reach out.
Yes,
Yes, for sure.
We'll tag her so you can find her and
Yes.
learn from her
Yes.
and follow her
Absolutely.
conferences that she speaks at and all the good stuff that she's got, her book and podcast and everything else.
Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And we'll see you next time.
Till next time, thank you.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.